my goodness, where do we begin with this film? We are a product of our background and how we use that to propel us forward. There's a story of family here and acceptance. Are these all the kind of motivations that you were thinking about when you first kind of wrote about the script?
Yeah, I mean, I felt that I was really initially really inspired by this space, the space of this old boxing gym in Folkestone, where I live, and it was such a lovely colour, and it just had this incredible lit feel to it. It felt so cinematic and beautiful, and I felt like, God, I want to somehow preserve this. I want to kind of capture this on camera somehow, on film, and make a story around this. And I was actually doing box fit classes there with women, and I just thought, there's so many stories here. We're all here for different reasons, and I wanted to. I just started making up a story in my head about speculating about who we were, who these women were, and then that evolved into the initial idea for the fight, and then it became something different as I developed it. And again, I realised that something I was really interested in exploring, as it turned out, was that cycle of family dysfunction and breaking those patterns.
I mean, it's interesting as well that for me, again, going back to kind of like the product of our past, there's bullying, that's a theme here, and how the repetition of what happens at home then happens outside of the home, and what kind of research you did into that with people that have been affected by bullying.
I was in a school where there was a lot of bullying. I grew up in a place where a lot of people were bullied. A friend of mine was bullied very badly in and out of school, and I always remembered that. I always managed to run away, so I managed to somehow escape or hide in a garden, but sometimes out of school that was harder. That was just my experience of girl bullying, and so that was really my experience of bullying at school. But I feel like, most relationships are some kind of a power struggle anyway, and sometimes that power struggle is really extreme, and in a lot of cases, it's kind of dangerously extreme. So I suppose I was just interested in the nuances of all relationships and how bullying can occur to varying degrees in all relationships. And all the characters to some degree at some point have been bullied and intimidated, and then somehow resolving that within the sort of narrative structure and finding some healing. Also helping people find a path through that, a kind of path of redemption then through that experience, either as victims or as aggressors, and how to find a resolution and acceptance of that, even when it's at its most profound level, which is always family. When there's bullying and aggression within a family, it's extremely difficult to find a resolution within that. I think particularly in the protagonist's case, her family is its own tiny psychodrama, of which she is an unwilling and unwitting participant, and there's not much she can do about that, and there never was. And so for her to kind of like get up from under that and accept it without anger and without violence is really a massive challenge. And really that's what I wanted to try and put on screen, and boxing was a way of doing that.
Absolutely. And what your actors have been talking to me about is the thrilling paces that you've been putting them through.
We didn't have a choice. We only had 12 days to film it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we only had 12 days. I couldn't have done it without them. I mean, they were amazing. And I having been an actor for so many years, to be in a situation as a director and suddenly to be expecting and wanting, actors to sort of turn up in the morning, and they're talking about me over there. Oh God. Turn up in the morning in character, ready to take on grueling days, so really intense filming. My respect for actors, for my actors and all actors, just quadrupled. You're so grateful when an actor comes and brings it and gives it and connects and works and then gives you a fantastic performance, which everybody did, you know.
From a technical point of view, because you're now working with your cinematographers, your editors, what was that whole experience like, working behind the camera and seeing it, maybe a film in a different way, in the filmmaking process in a different way to which you've experienced it before?
I loved all the aspects of it. You know, I loved on set, you know, the actual the feeling on set. I loved the pressure and then the feeling that we were achieving things, you know, like scene by scene, you know, moment by moment. However, the time was constrained, and I would often, you know, on one particular day, we only had Rhona for one day's filming, and I had to reimagine a scene that we never would have managed to do in the time that we had. So I just reimagined it in a completely different way, with far less words, less characters, but it was all much more visual and much more about really hitting those emotional beats. And it was much the better for it, you know. But I felt free to do that on set, and I feel that's an essential part of filmmaking, is you have to adapt moment to moment, problem to problem, you know, sort of day to day. You have to adapt to everything, to the weather, to the time, to the situation, also to actors' performances, because they bring you things that
you didn't expect.
You didn't expect, and then you get someone, you're like, hold on, especially on a low budget thing, that wasn't there before. You know, that wall, when did that appear? You know, or I'm sure there was a tree there. You know. And you just have to work around it and suddenly make it work. But I love that, and the post-production process. Had a fantastic colorist who'd done some really big films and really lovingly coloured the film, you know, beautifully. A fantastic score by Luke Abbott. I did a lot of the composing with him because he'd written this amazing music, but didn't feel he really wanted to put it on the film, so I worked with my brother-in-law, in fact, James Hynes, who's a sound designer, laid all the music down. But I had an instinct for where I felt I wanted it to be and how it could work, and I just loved all of it. And to work with these people, all of these great people, was just phenomenal.
A cracking script, isn't it, that Jessica's devised?
Yes, I mean, it really came from such a deep place in her heart. And I think the execution of it, and her being the director and obviously the star in it, you know, from the very beginning to the end, it's sort of Jessica's baby, really. And so, and a tough one to be the director and the lead actress in it.
And your part as well. I mean, she's got quite a backstory going on, hasn't she?
Well, she's that friend at school that always haunts you, and I think that holds a mirror up to you and brings out your best and your worst, and it sort of inspires all those demons to come and bite you later in life, and you don't realize that really everyone's sort of a reflection of each other, and I think that's what I got the opportunity to play out. I was a bit surprised because I spoke to Jess. I was all the way up in Northern California camping. We did a Skype call, and there was this really passionate Jessica just in my little rectangular box, and she's like, this is who this girl needs to be, and she was like teary-eyed when she was describing her to me, and I was sort of honoured that she thought that I might be the person that could hold a mirror to that, even though it's just a wink and a wiggle really in the grand scheme of things. But it was really important for Jessica's character that she's there, being as vile as she is.
But I mean, what's come across and what must be amazing for an actor as well is this director who is so passionate and enthusiastic, because when you're helming a project like that, you need to be able to have that infectiousness for your actors as well. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
It's a rarity to have that level of fire burning, that level of love, that care, almost to a fault. I've rarely seen that level of love, actually, and necessity to tell a story. Jess had and has this necessity, this bleeding necessity to tell a story, and it transcended and it pulled me all the way across the water. I only shot a couple of days, but I just wanted to be in the company of this amazing woman. It's just infectious to be around it. It doesn't really matter in what company. She could have said, you know, let's go and clean some toilets together, and I'd just be, yeah, okay, I'm with you. What are we doing? Okay. So, And it was a mad one because she was directing and she was acting and in a quite emotionally taxing role for her.
This script, I mean, it's hardly surprising you wanted to pick it up and produce it. It is wonderful, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't written when it came to us. We've been involved that long. It was just an idea. It was just an idea, and we told Jess we loved it and we wanted to do it, and that she should start writing, and we were there every step of the way.
I mean, this is her first film. Did you have any kind of trepidation because she obviously is directing it as well?
Yes, but she's very confident, Jessica. She knows what she wants, for sure. And I think we all felt confident that the acting, she'd be able to take care of the performances. I think when you watch the movie, the performances are incredible. So I felt, as an actress and all of the years of experience that she had, I felt confident she'd deliver that. There's always nerves in that, are you going to be able to deliver a movie? And not only deliver a movie for your first feature, but deliver it in 12 days. But obviously, hopefully with our experience and the team that we put around her, that was, able to be possible.
I was going to say, is it because it's so hard to get a film off the ground in any case? In England, even less because there's less money. How was that, finding the financing, even though it's an independent film? Was it tricky?
No, in this case it wasn't tricky because we had an investor and co-exec producer, Maggie Monteith, who was there with the money and really loved what Jess had sent through and said that she was willing to finance it. So, she's worked with us before on Brotherhood and 10 by 10. So we were happy to take her this project, and it was something she was willing to do. So in this case, with Jessica's talent and her idea, it was lucky. It's not always as lucky and always as easy as this, but I think everyone wanted to back Jessica because we believed in what she could do, and she's delivered.
And just finally, you're both actors as well as producers. It's all about the story. Ultimately, what is it about this story that for you is a winner?
I think it's a film that it says a lot. It's very emotive. I think you watch it, and I think a lot of people, and I'm going to remove the younger generation on this film, but I think people over a certain age, it resonates. It's like lost opportunities, regrets, and I think when I watch it, it just gives me such a sense of emotion and feeling, and I think it's one of those movies that a lot of people will be able to recognise elements of themselves within that movie, and I think it transcends, and it's really beautiful. You should all go and see it.
So when Jessica approached you to do this script, what was your initial thought?
Well, it was very funny because I know of her, obviously. I think she's very, very talented. And when they first asked me and they said it was improvisational, I was like, whoa. But I just wanted to work with her, and I like the idea of the story, and I like trying new things. I'm a bit like, Jess is quite like me. She wants to kind of step out there and put herself on the line. So I thought, okay, I'm up for it. And I'm so glad I did it because she's a real powerhouse and a very, very clever, talented lady. And I think this is a really good story.
Really? Does it help you as well? Because obviously Jessica's an actress, and she isn't, wherever she's going to take you, she would be prepared to go to herself as an actress.
Totally right. I must admit, the first day I was like, whoa, what's going on? Because it was going so fast, because obviously she had a very limited amount of time to make the film. But by the time the second day came, I was like, I love this. I'm up for it. I'm really enjoying it. It was great, and we got on really well. And so, yeah. But I think she has the ability to keep very, very focused and yet still inspire the people around her. Do you know what I mean? She kind of drives through because she's got a vision, and so you want to be a part of it, and that's what holds you to her.
What felt very, very eminent for me watching the film is that it's all about family. No family's perfect, and it's about making the best of what you've got. Is that something that you may have taken away from you from this?
I think a lot of people would take that away when they see the film. I was talking to somebody a little earlier, and that's exactly what I said too. It's like it reminds you that you're not alone. Every family is dysfunctional in different ways, some more than others, but it's still, that's it, and life is tough. It is tough. That's the way it is. Don't come into the world expecting, that you deserve anything special, because none of us do. If you get it, you're very lucky, be grateful. But if you don't, work harder and just look at the good stuff you've got. Yeah.
There's a lot of probably to be said about acceptance. None of us are perfect. We've all got our foibles and our, nobody's good and nobody's bad. And I think accepting people for who they are is important as well.
I think that's the big one. You've hit the nail on the head. Acceptance. I mean, when something awful does happen, as it does to lots of people, acceptance sometimes in those situations can be really hard. And I really admire people that have that quality, that they can just go, okay, I've been dealt a really bad hand here and life's going to be tough, but I'm going to find a way to get through it and make the best of it. And sometimes something wonderful comes out of that desire to overcome things. My grandfather used to say, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you.
It's true, it's what you learn by your experience, isn't it? You either be defeated or you use it as a catapult to move you forward.
Yeah. Not easy to do.
No, it's not.
But that's the lesson, isn't it?
In life. For an actor, this is a really great story to be a part of, isn't it?
As far as I know, and I mean that literally, because I don't know if you're aware, it was done on a strictly needs-to-know basis.
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's a revelation there.
Yeah, that's how Jess wanted to play it, you know. In fact, the closest I've come to it, I did a little bit in a series quite a few years ago now called The Family Tree, which is Christopher Guest, who made the ultimate mockumentary, This Is Spinal Tap, right? And he kind of worked in a very similar way, but you were given kind of pointers as to what he needed to get out of whatever scene it was. With this, I literally rocked up each day not knowing what I was going to be doing, saying, or anything. And given that was the terms of the project, it was actually very relaxing, you know, because it's the number one rule. Whatever happens, know what you're doing, and most certainly know your lines, you know, because there's very little, if any, quarter given for actors blowing takes. Technically, yeah, okay, we'll just go again. But you can sense the immediate frustration if actors don't know what they're doing, and frankly, it is unforgivable. But for some extraordinary reason, it was the most liberating thing to just be totally in somebody else's hands and
you've just got to run with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking that leap of faith, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Which is why I usually loathe. Well, I can't bear watching myself anyway. But the only sort of ameliorating factor is that actually I'm not sure what the entire story movie is. I've got a shrewd idea, but until I've actually seen it, I'm not quite sure what I'm in, really.
Is it slightly unnerving because for an actor you are normally working towards the motivation of the character and where the scene is going?
Well, yes, it's all about telling a story and where your character fits into that, because that's the whole point of it all. But when you're in a position where you are utterly beholden to one person who knows what certainly the story is and what they want from the story, there's not really much you can do other than pay attention at all times.
Be in the moment.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's perfectly put. Yeah, be in the moment.
When I spoke to Jess earlier on, Folkestone was very much kind of at the heart of this. So, with working with the kind of colour palette that you were looking towards, can you share with us a little bit more about the visual aspects?
Yeah, well, me and Jess talked about her influences that she was thinking of when she was writing the film, and we came up with like colour palettes, quite rudimentary stuff like blues and oranges, and just trying to evoke that through the characters and like the location. So, you know, you'd paint a wall orange here, you'd have a sunset here, you know, you'd have cooler moments, and trying to subliminally, I can't even say that word, to like really subtly tell the audience the story through the visuals, you know.
We're dealing with kind of themes of bullying, being accountable for your actions, and how does that affect the kind of the tone of what you're trying to set visually?
I think it's important to think about the main character in the film constantly and try and tell the story from her perspective and not to get caught up in like the visuals. As long as you focus on the character and story, you know, you'll always be making the film in the right way.
And what the kind of cameras that you were using, what were they?
we use very lightweight cameras just so we could be fast and quick and nimble, but also so we could run after Jess when she's running and training and doing all those like classic archetypal like Rocky montages. So I could run after her or fail to run after her. She's very fast and athletic. So like the Arri Alexa, which is like it's like the best camera in the world, you know, and trying to make it look good, you know.
Am I correct in saying when you're using a digital camera that you need kind of more lighting? And I'm wondering whether if that is the case and you're working to a tight time frame, how the setting up of scenes, how does that?
Well, with the camera, we weren't inhibited by light so much because it was very like scheduled to the sun. But it was a very tight time restraints. But everything's a challenge, so you're kind of looking at a scene and trying to tell the story in the simplest way possible, you know. We've got an hour to shoot. How do we tell the story of this scene? You know, not trying to tell it in a stereotypical way. Trying to say this is a film. If we were to tell this scene in one shot, how would we do that? You know.